Welcome to my hometown of Richmond, North Yorkshire, which is this year celebrating a big birthday. A mighty castle that we see through the trees here dates back exactly 950 years to the reign of William the Conqueror. So I'm going to go down and show you some of the history of this amazing little town, some of the myths, legends, scenery, characters, and just why Richmond continues to attract countless visitors every year. Richmond today has around 9,000 inhabitants, and the medieval cobbled marketplace is the heartbeat, rising up as it did next to the imposing Norman castle. Richmond is littered with historic shops and pubs like this one, the Bishop Blaze, the oldest pub in town, which has been here for around 500 years, and its location makes it the perfect setting for a sunny afternoon. One story goes that the castle was built over a cave where King Arthur and his knights were sleeping, willing to defend England in their hour of need. A local potter, Peter Thompson, claims to have stumbled upon the opening of the cave somewhere around here, where he found Excalibur. When he picked up the sword, the knights began to stir, and the tombs began to open. He replaced the sword, and everything stilled again. As he fled the cave in terror, a voice called out to him, Potter Thompson, hast thou blown the horn? Thou hadst been the greatest man that ever was born. He then covered the cave so that nobody would ever find it again. And guess what? Nobody has to this day. Perhaps the most famous, spooky and perhaps more credible of Richmond's legends is that of the little drummer boy. The legend maintains that at the end of the 18th century, some soldiers discovered an opening to a tunnel under the keep of the castle. As they were too large to crawl into it themselves, they selected one of the small regimental drummer boys to be lowered through a narrow crevice into a vault. He was told to continue along the passage, beating his drum as he went. Guided by the sound of the drumming, the soldiers were to follow his course above the ground and so plot the route. The sound of the drum was heard clearly as he proceeded down the tunnel. It led them away from the castle, across the marketplace, in the direction of Frenchgate, and beside the River Swale towards Easby. This stone stands today to mark the point where the drumming stopped. His body was never found, and his fate remains an unsolved mystery. It's said that at certain points along the route, in the dead of night, a faint drumming can still be heard. Another half mile along this popular walking route lies Easby Abbey, which is one of the best preserved monasteries in England. It was founded in 1152 and suppressed in 1536 during the Reformation when Henry VIII decided to split from the Catholic Church, and within 2 years had been stripped and largely demolished. Thankfully, this magnificent refectory that I'm standing in, the gatehouses and the canon's dormitory have been preserved, and the ruins have been the inspiration for many an artist, including JMW Turner. So we've managed to collar a local resident, Andy Gaines, with us, who's happily agreed to share some thoughts on camera. So Andy, how long have you lived in Richmond?
I moved into Richmond in 2001. Moved up from Bristol with the Ben family. I had 3 kids, or 2 kids at the time, now 3. And we all love it. Richmond, from the moment I went into the marvellous marketplace, it was the place for me. I just felt at home. The locals made me very welcome. I was lucky enough to get invited along to join Round Table within days of arriving, and people know people, and you just got the network and lots and lots of friends instantly.
Well, I've heard it said before that even people that have lived in Richmond for 30 years are still considered outsiders, so...
I think I've just been lucky.
That's great. So what do you like about Richmond then, your favourite parts?
Well, when I moved here, the thing that really drew me was the Georgian theatre, which I was very theatre based in Bristol. I came here, saw this wonderful theatre, all this history. I went to everything for the first few weeks, then it closed for 2 years for a major renovation. So that didn't go exactly according to plan, but now it's more wonderful than ever, and it's just had another refit in lockdown.
I played there when I was 8, actually. I was Benjamin and Joseph in the Amazing Technical Dream Car. I think it was before your time, really. Though.
Yes, I've missed that. But I did get to. I've been on the stage at the Georgian, so I'm overjoyed because I was in Oliver in one of the local amateur productions.
Right.
Loved it.
So you're a local business owner as well, I believe.
Yes. In 2008, I took over Sip Coffee in King Street, and I had that for 10 years. So that's pretty much 7 days a week for 10 years, and loved every minute. But I think 10 years is a good chunk of your life, and time to move on to something, I'd say, bigger and better, but different.
So how have you found Richmond during the lockdown, the pandemic?
Well, I've been out at Easby here. I moved in 2 years ago into Easby, which I've always loved because we walk from Richmond round the loop like everybody else does. And that's what we found in lockdown there. Everybody walks the Easby loop. So I saw everybody I know from Richmond. They all walked by my front door. All said hello. Every 10 yards all the way through the summer. Lockdown.
Well, thanks, Andy.
Right. Thanks a lot.
Another of Richmond's famous tales is that of Robert Willens, a wealthy draper who lived here in Frenchgate in 1606 during the reign of King James I. It's a bit of a hike to where the story starts, so I'd better get going, and I'll start the tale when I get there. This stunning spot here is known as Willens's Leap. Robert Willens was out hunting on his horse one November day when the light faded. He tried to find their way home, but darkness fell. Something spooked the horse and it plunged 212 feet down Wycliffe Scar. The horse was killed instantly and Robert's leg was badly broken. He knew that nobody would find him until the morning, and he had to keep warm until then if he was going to make it through the night. So he used his hunting knife to slit open the belly of his horse, and he placed the smashed leg inside of the carcass. Next morning he was found alive, still half in and half out of his dead horse, and he was carried home to Frenchgate. Unfortunately, his leg was so badly damaged that it had to be amputated, and it was buried in St Mary's churchyard at the bottom of his garden. Miraculously, Willens recovered his health, and in 1608 he became an alderman of the town. He was so grateful for his survival that he had this monument erected, and a stone that read 1606, "Glory be to our merciful God, who miraculously preserved me from the danger so great." This stone's been replaced several times, but he did mark the bounds his horse took, with stones around 24 feet apart. So there we have it, what was merely a whistle-stop tour of 950 years of history of this, the world's original Richmond, of which there are now 105 dotted throughout the world, from South Africa to Sri Lanka to the Caribbean. It's the world's most replicated place name. I'm not surprised. There's something magical about this town, its hidden beauty spots, historic streets and breathtaking scenery. It would take me hours to show you all of it. I just hope it hasn't changed too much when it turns 1,000. I'll see you then, hopefully.